Good morning, Blues. How you doing? Healthcare workers, first responders, vets. How you doing? I'm struggling with the grace today because I really am the kind of Christian where I try to carry my own cross and not to admonish other people for their own sins. But it's hard for me to find a way to look at the humans that are putting all of this horror onto others and still see them as full, complete human beings. And I was praying about that this morning because I don't want to be like them. And I heard, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I think that's true for a lot of the population. We have been so comfortable that everyday Americans have never experienced true suffering and true hardship unless you belong to one of the professions that I just listed. Most people have never seen a truly starving child. I have. I've seen a 12-year-old who was living in a camp that was in a war-torn African nation that was brought into our hospital, and he was so thin that we had to use a newborn infant size cuff to take his blood pressure. His arms were this big around. He was so emaciated that you could see every single bone in his face. You could see the indentations in his skull. He was so close to true starvation. And maybe because you haven't seen that you don't understand the absolute horror that it puts in your heart, the pit that it puts in your stomach when you will see that happen to American children from lack of food. Maybe you've never heard the sound that a woman makes when she's lost her child. I have. And you'll never forget it. You've never seen a child's face when they wake up from a car accident and realize that they've lost their parents or siblings forever. I have. Except instead of a car accident, these children will wake up knowing that they've lost their parents to starvation, heat stroke, or having been fed to the predators that live in the Everglades. And if you had ever seen their face or heard that sound, it would never cross your mind to do that intentionally to another person. You've probably never held a shaken baby who's now blind from retinal detachment, is having seizures all the time, not because their parents are terrible, horrible, cruel people, but because they were poor and destitute and so stressed out that that baby crying just pushed them over the edge and they did something unforgivable. And they barely even remember it, and now they're going to prison. Yeah, you've never seen that, and it's very obvious. Do you know how comfortable you have to be bothered by somebody with a hairy chest wearing lipstick and eyeliner? Yeah, you have to be incredibly comfortable. Do you know how unbothered your average everyday life has to be to give a rip about who's playing high school sports? Yeah, that's what we're talking about when we talk about privilege. Because feeling existential dread is part of the human condition, and we experienced that at a time of immense, amazing abundance, prosperity, and comfort. And instead of just teaching people how to acknowledge that and work on their own mental health and spirituality, we invented reasons to feel that crappy. And we have now made up all of these problems in our society, and we are responding to them with cruelty because that cruelty feels like a remedy for the black pit that we have in our hearts as a society. Hopefully not me, but as a society, and it's gross. And it will absolutely come back to bite us in the butt. My Roman Empire is the fact that we have a Roman Empire trend where men all over our country think about the Roman Empire every single day, and yet clearly they are failing to see the parallels that we are seeing in our society right now. Dark Batman is Nero. The Joker is Caesar. The bread and circus, yeah, it's everywhere. They are selling merch for Alligator Alcatraz. They have just switched out lions and bears for alligators, pythons, and carnivorous fish. But do you remember what happened after all the blood and circus, after all the gladiators went home? Do you know what the Roman Colosseum looks like now? Yeah, it's a popular tourist attraction, but it is in ruins. Right after all the greed and corruption and circus wore off, it fell. the greatest empire that the world had ever seen, that experienced the greatest amount of technological advancements, plumbing, democracy, it all fell thanks to the bread and circus, and you don't see it now? How do you think about that every day and you don't understand that that's what's going to happen right now? I will never understand. The Joker looked worse than normal yesterday, particularly decrepit, very confused, and yet still gleeful about the idea of sending people to an American camp with good concentration. And I think it's important to remember that he will not be here forever. There will be a time where you can no longer hide behind the cloak of your God King. And those chickens will absolutely come to roost. And whether it's in this time or the next, if you're cheering for this, I believe that there is an afterlife. And if you're wearing one of those t-shirts, I have a feeling that's the first stop that you're going to make on your way to redemption. It's not my job to punish you for your sins, that's for sure. But it is somebody's. And you need to look long and hard into your heart and really think about whether or not you think that this is a good idea. Because if your soul is really eternal, you're going to have a lot to answer for. And I certainly wouldn't want to spend eternity there.